Sure.
You can switch everything on Zoom.
YouTube.
YouTube, oh, it'll be later.
It's live.
It's live. So what's the code word? Whatever. Okay, third one. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he was here a second. I want you to say something like inappropriate. Really? I could use it. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. That was really perfect. Yeah, in the back. That's what no, you weren't going to offer it up.
Well,
Oh. Okay, DJ's not. It's interesting that, you know, like seeing like temperance. Yeah.
many years.
Right, yes, he was, but he still, but he works it. You see how it's doing.
His mom was better.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, All right. Yeah. Yeah. No, they just, oh, yeah. Whatever. They can also.
Oh, yeah. It's for showing and that was just we're working on it. Yeah.
Who is Sham?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's actually like.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about this?
You gotta hold it. I'm not. That's not my photo. But I stuck it all in your pockets. Yeah, yeah. Hi.
On the registered what? For the family?
Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's a lot.
I think that, you know, I have to use the room for some. Sure don't have to do it on the and then reliefs. This is my own child. Sister, right? I just remember when you're reading, and then you go out and with people, and all of a sudden laughter because you just have to release. I know. You know,
It is usually a big mix.
whenever she's just as soon as we all just started laughing, and we just were staring at her because it was just sick kids. Yeah. It's my funeral story. She's I was just saying, I'm so glad that she's at school because she's, you know, at the top of the game. So it's just like her confidence is just
It's fun. It's fun. They've arranged that.
That's all you.
How's everybody in your place?
Well, yeah, they both love it.
Oh, they did. Oh. I've been here. Yeah.
I mean, it gets a ton.
Yeah.
We were there.
So who's
Just met. She's a freshman.
oh, she's a freshman. She's in her.
I mean, they're 9 months.
That's right. He's a junior. So
Which, you know what?
You were right. You should always go on like.
no, everyone's okay.
But it worked out good.
Do you have that?
Hopefully they'll be bringing the casket right through here. Can I ask you to start moving this way? Please watch the camera.
Andrew swings it very differently.
What does he do?
He does it different on each, but it's like 62, 64.
Yeah.
I'm definitely enjoying it. I can't believe this semester is already over. Yeah, like small and I'm really excited. I would say it's
Pretty nice, yeah.
yeah, just on mine. Yeah, it's on mine. That's why we did Hi, Yoni. How's she doing? She's okay. Yeah. She has. It's okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's it.
I was eating it just out of the pan. Yes. Yes. So it kind of the liquid is pretty.
I know, you see so many people, yeah. I know, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really? Students? Okay. Yeah, I texted him. Did you know that? Texted me. I don't know. It's like, like he texted me a couple days before. And then I was like, well, that's so great. And then when this happened, I immediately texted him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are upon service time. If I can invite everyone to start gathering around the chairs a little bit closer while still maintaining some safe distance, social distancing. If I can invite all the pallbearers to please come to the rear of the hearse.
Back there?
Sorry.
Adonai Masi Elyon, Samta Meonecha, Lo Tene Ilecha Ra'av, Venega Lo Yitra, Be'o Halecha.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones for the service. The family has also been seated and there are a few extra chairs, so please don't be bashful. If you need a chair, please take a chair.
Before we begin, we have a tradition in Jewish funerals that we mark the beginning of this moment with a moment of tearing. It's called Keriah. It literally translates to ripping. And we are going to take this moment to tear something because this moment hurts. We tear for a couple of reasons.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the rabbis placing the Keriah ribbons on the family, we have a need of this BMW, small electric BMW, black and gray. If we can have someone move that, the car in front of them needs to leave.
So as we were saying, we care for a number of reasons. We care because this is a rip in the fabric of your family. We tear because you're in pain. And sometimes it helps to do something physical to mark that. And finally, we tear because especially, I think for Udi and for Itai and Robin and for Justin and Darcy, I spent a lot of time in hospitals, in doctors' offices, filling out forms, worrying about paperwork, the details of being sick. And this marks the end of that you are in a new phase of this journey of loving Fern and taking care of her while she was sick, and now we get to love her and take care of her when she is gone. And so we tear to mark the change in your status as you become mourners. And so I am going to have you, those who are wearing ribbons, repeat after me. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mivorach. And that means God gives and God takes away. Blessed is the name of God. And for our hearts which are torn, we perform this act of Keriah, of tearing. You will go ahead and tear your ribbon just a little bit. You don't have to tear anything off of it. Just give it a little tear. And then you repeat after me one more time. Baruch Dayan HaEmet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, the judge of truth. Welcome. It is a sad honor that I have to be with you this morning. My name is Rabbi Emily Hyatt. This is Steve Brodsky, and we have the really privilege, though it is a sad one, to be with you this morning to say goodbye to Fern and to lay her to rest in this space on this beautiful day. There's really three parts to a Jewish funeral. The first thing we do is prepare ourselves through psalm and poem and song for this hard work that we have to do. The second thing that we do is tell the story of her life, a beautiful story. You cannot understand or even see a full story, a legacy, until there is an end date. And sadly, we now have that for Fern's life. And so we turn around and look back. And the third thing that we do is the physical act of laying her body to rest. And so we begin by preparing ourselves. And I want to share with you this poem that after I learned yesterday so much about Fern and her life, I could not help but share with you. I understand Fern to be a traveler, not just someone who gets on airplanes and goes places, though I think that is certainly was true of her, but someone who was truly on a journey in life. And so this is a poem called A Sacred Pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity, from youth to age, and from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, and pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made that journey at all, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Steve is going to share with you a song that Fern's family requested. It was written a number of years ago by an Israeli artist named Aviv Geffen, who wrote it, I understand, at the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, the former prime minister of the state of Israel. And it's called Livkot Lecha, which means to cry for you.
אני הולך לבכות לך, תהיה חזק למעלה. נעווי כמו דלתות שנפתחות בלילה. נצח אחי, אזכור אותך תמיד, וניפגש בסוף, אתה יודע. יש לי חברים, אבל גם הם קווים, אל מול אורך משגע. שוב, כשעצובים, הולכים הים, הולכים ילם לכן, הים מלוח. זה עצוב, שלחזיר ציוד אפשר, לא געגוע. והצלחי, אזכור אותך תמיד, וניפגש בסוף, אתה יודע. יש לי חברים, אבל גם הם קווים, אל מול אורך המשגע. כמו הגלים, אנחנו מצטרפים אל המזרח, אל החיים. כמו הגלים, אנחנו מתנפצים אל המזרח, אל החיים. נצח אחי, זכור אותך תמיד, וניפגש בסוף, אתה יודע. יש לי חברים, אבל גם הם קווים, אל מול אורך המשגע. נצח אחי, אזכור אותך תמיד, וניפגש בסוף, אתה יודע. יש לי חברים, אבל גם הם קווים, אל מול אורך המשגע. היא הולכת לבכות לך, תהיה חזק למעלה.
So we turn to the recitation of Psalm 23, which is a psalm that we recite so often at funerals of all different faiths. And you probably know one of the lines from it by heart. It says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. And I want to share with you one teaching that I think is probably pretty Fern relevant, which is that we often think that walking in the valley of the shadow of death is talking about our loved one who has died, that they are in the valley. And I learned from one of my teachers that in fact it's us. We're in the valley right now, and it feels really dark and it feels really hard. And yet, thank you. And yet we remember that we only see shadows because there is light. And so our job is to prepare ourselves to tell the story of Fern's light. And I think there was a lot of light that Fern brought and shed on this world. And it may seem a little dark right now, but our job is to think about that light. And so we chant the words of Psalm 23.
Adonai roi o echsar ino deshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot yenahaleni nafshi yeshove yancheni v'matle tzedek yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begetz almavet lo ira ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai ishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai kol yemei chayai v'shavti bevet Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar.
Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And so we arrive at the telling of the story of the life of Fern, and it is a story. And there are a number of people who are going to share pieces of it from their perspective with you. And so I want to begin by calling Sharon.
I'm Fern's sister. People always tell me I look like her. She was a little shorter. Fern spent some time every day practicing gratitude. Thank all of you for being here today with us. So many people cared about Fern. Life is a sweet gift. I would like to share 3 of the good memories from relatives in Israel and California. And I'll follow with my family stories and my stories. First, from my mother's first cousin Yael in Israel, Gonen, Kibbutz Gonen. I'm going to read it in Hebrew and translate as I go. It's about 6 sentences. Harega kibalti hoda'a mi Avner sheshlomit hayekara shelanu niftara. This moment, I received the notice from Avner that Shlomit Fern, our dearest Fern, has passed. Kolkach atzuv. So very, very sad. Haitam mleat chaim. She was full of life. Mleat tochniot, full of plans. Shamra kol hazman al kesher cham im hamishpacha b'Yisrael. She preserved the good, warm connection with the family in Israel. And there's a lot of us in Israel. Libinu itchem, our hearts are with you. The second message is from Aloni, our second cousin in Tel Aviv. Her mom is a little older than Yael. Roni says, Shlomit for us is a symbol of a woman who knows how to keep the family flame going. She is so much a family-oriented person. And thirdly, from our cousin, Patty Burris, who is sitting here with her husband, Donnie, from Santa Monica, California. Patty remembers how happy Fern was to get a phone call from Patty, also from other people. Whenever Patty called, Fern always had a warm greeting. Hi, how are you? This is all the time that she had been ill a lot. She never concentrated on her illness. She always told me, I'm getting better every day. My family has memories to share too. My husband, Perry, remembers a trip to Acadia, Maine. Fern looked at a picture book. It had a picture of a little bridge, a high bridge over a cliff. Fern said, that looks dangerous. Let's do it. I was always afraid following her. She had the courage. Our son, Michael, remembers walking with Fern in San Francisco on the pier out there. Afterwards, Fern had a lovely comment for Michael. Isn't it nice that we can talk? Our son, Daniel, he lives in Michigan now, a doctor. He remembers a wedding trip in Portland, Oregon on a hot day when he was about 8 years old. His Aunt Fern dragged him into the fountains, even though Fern was wearing a fine dress that actually started to bleed blue dye. What a cool aunt. Now for a few of my memories. When Fern and I were growing up, we were already having adventures. She was definitely in charge. She always pushed my boundaries. In high school, we rode bicycles from our home in Berkeley to Lake Merritt, Oakland, California. When we skied or hiked, Fern always led the way down the mountain. After college, she took me to the San Jose flea market and insisted that I go down the 2-story slide, even though I was frightened. I did have fun though. Shlomit was very generous. In every room of my house, I have items to remember my sister. I have macrame and weaving that she made in Moshav HaYogev. I have finger puppets, dried flowers in baskets on the wall, clothes we shopped for together, eyeglass cases, purses, tote bags. She gave me flight privileges for travel, So I got to go visit Israel. As adults, we did bicycle trips in the Czech Republic and Hungary. After a cruise that my husband and I were on, Fern joined us in Sydney, Australia. She initiated a lot of travel. She definitely was a traveler that I never would have gone on these trips without her. We went together to Israel for bar mitzvahs and weddings. She helped me organize a bar mitzvah party in Israel for our son, Michael. She created an artistic family tree. My dad looked at that tree and he said, how come my grandparents are on the bottom of this tree from the other side of the family? We didn't have pictures of the religious side. We didn't know, but it was enlightening. There was a trip to France to see the caves. She included me on a bar-own trip to Turkey. Fern was a powerhouse. She came to California and helped me clear out our mother's apartment before we moved mother to assisted living. Later, Fern was able to come and get me to discard much more of mother's clothing. Shlomit introduced me to Feldenkrais, brown flaxseed, herb farm herbs, and laughter yoga. Almost every day when Shlomit was driving, she would call me. Udi wondered how Shlomit and I always had so much to talk about. I want to thank Udi for all the work he's done to support Shlomit in this long haul of illness. I am going to miss Fern's wonderful stories that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Fern kept us wondering what would happen next. Thank you, Fern, for laughter, love, and even all the surprises.
Fern, Sharon, and I had complicated childhoods. Mother was divorced first from my father. She remarried, and Sharon and Fern were soon born. We all have half brothers from our father's side. Mom divorced again when we were still very young. She loved us, but our childhoods were very complicated. I remember things we children did for each other when we needed attention and emotional support. Because we bonded as children, it was important for us to stay in touch. Even though we went to different schools during those years, and lived in different states some of those years after our mom's second divorce. We never lost that bond and emotional connection. We all know how much Fern did to keep all of us together. All of us here and so many others watching a live stream. There were visits, reunions, and travel. Sometimes they were frequent and sometimes not. But we always kept in touch. Bridget and I and our children, Laura and Brian, have great memories of visits with Fern and Udi and with Itai and Robin and their families. I want to mention a few of those memories. Fern invited Bridget and me to join her and some friends on a bicycle trip and adventure in the Netherlands. Fern and Sharon visited Laura in Italy, and at another time, Udi and Itai did too. All of our lives are divided between now and before the pandemic. And Fern's is before the cancer diagnosis over 4 years ago, in 2017. In 2019, she and her granddaughter Zohar came to Chicago. And again, in 2019, all of us in Chicago and Brian from Maryland were able to see everyone at Tony's. Since the cancer diagnosis in 2017, Fern was so strong and brave, fighting the cancer. And she beat it with the help of her doctors for longer than expected, and continued to do so much. The last 3 months were a new fight to live. I was with Fern and Udi for 6 days in October, and I got to Denver when she was still in a previous hospitalization. And after about 2.5 days, she was able to come home, which she was really looking forward to. And during those following days, my dear brother-in-law, Woody, was her nurse and doctor. He had organized so many of her medications on a schedule, which included administering chemotherapy and antibiotics, which she still needed at that time. She made the most of her life, all 71 years. Her impact on all of our lives and on my life will be with me forever.
I'm gonna call Eris.
Now and I are going to read something from the family in Israel. I will read it in Hebrew, and now we'll read it in English. I just want to say one thing about Fern, that when we moved here 21 years ago, Noah and I, Noah's grandma in the kibbutz, she said, you guys must talk with the Barons, and we didn't know them back then. And okay, we moved in, we said, okay, another family. We didn't do much about it, but then Fern, she is the one that connected between us, and she's why we are part of the family. So we owe you, Fern, big time, and we never forget that. So I'm going to read something from all the family in Israel. Let's start with Hebrew. אנשים צנועים באמת גם מותם חרישי, כמעט מתנצל. אנא, סלחו לי על הטרחה, לא יכולתי אחרת. אנשים צנועים מתים בשקט, כמעט בנשיקה, הרחק ממילים. הם אינם נלקחים לשמיים במרכבות אש. שלומית יקרה ואהובה, כך היית וכך הלכת אל מותך בדרכך המיוחדת, בשקט, בצניעות, באומץ, וכפי שמתאים לך, בוודאי גם בסקרנות. הלכת לדרכך עטופה באהבתם של היקרים לך מכל. מלווים אותך באהבה רבה, נוחי על משכבך בשלום, משפחת בר-און ישראל.
I'm going to translate what he read. Truly humble people, even their death is silent, almost apologetic. Please forgive me for the hassle. There is no way around it. Humble people die quietly, almost a kiss, distant from words. They are not taken to the sky in a chariot of fire. This was written by Ali Abad. Our dear beloved Shlomit, this is how you lived and this is how you died in your special way. Quietly, humbly, courageously, and as you are, likely also curiously. You went on your way surrounded by the love of those dearest to you all, accompanying you with lots of love. Rest in peace of our own family in Israel.
We weren't supposed to be here today. This past Saturday, on the 7th night of Hanukkah, we thought my mom would be coming home. Because of COVID, the hospital only allowed one visitor per day. I hadn't actually seen my mom in the flesh since mid-November when she was last admitted. So that night, the 7th night of Hanukkah, at Era's and Noah's house, we lit candles, ate potato pancakes, and FaceTimed with my mom from her hospital bed. We said, since she couldn't come home today, then maybe tomorrow. She tried to smile, but I could see it wasn't easy. The next day, Sunday, my mom's friend Petra, who came from Berlin just to see her, spent the day with her in the hospital. That day didn't go well. And early Monday morning, Fern was moved into ICU and put on life support. After 5 difficult years fighting lung cancer, my mom could no longer breathe on her own. Monday morning, my sister and I were refused entry to the hospital. So we snuck in through the side door so we could be at my mom's bedside. We had a few precious hours left. Friends and family from around the world took their turns saying goodbye. Nobody was ready. Then it was our turn. First myself, and then Robin, and lastly my dad. We told her how much we loved her and how much we would miss her. We told her that we would be okay without her and not to worry about us or her grandkids. But we knew that once she left, we would have a giant hole in our hearts and in our lives. The 3 of us stood there with her as she took her last breaths. My mom had more love inside of her to give than she knew what to do. It was a lot. Sometimes too much, even. But I remember as a kid how that love she gave me made me feel so safe and so strong. The feeling I hope every one of us gets to experience at some point. The love my mom had to give wasn't just for her family. She was generous with that love, and it touched many people. Whether it was her large and extended family that she worked tirelessly to bring together, or lifelong friends from all over the world that she loved and adored, or the people she worked with, or new friends that she was always making, or her neighbors that she loved to organize and celebrate, or the small group of women who met weekly in her basement for intense yoga workouts and that called themselves the underground badasses. My mom would focus so much on giving that she didn't always reveal who she really was and what she was about. So I will try to tell you a little about how I saw her and what she taught me. First thing to know about my mom was that she was fearless. Nothing scared or intimidated her. When she was 18, she didn't hesitate to leave her life in Berkeley, California to move halfway around the world to Israel. She left behind everything she knew to start a new life. In Israel, my mom met my father, where they fell in love dancing. True story. Even though her own childhood was difficult, she wasn't afraid to get married and start a family at age 21. When she wrapped you in her love, her bravery and fearlessness were contagious. Together, my parents became stronger. Then they used that strength, not just to start a family, but to also become serial entrepreneurs. It started with the English language bookstore in Afula, which is a tiny town in northern Israel. When that didn't work out, my parents picked up their lives and their family and moved to America. Then my sister was born, as well as some more entrepreneurial ventures. There was the falafel stand at the flea market, the landscaping company, the logging company in Northern California. When that didn't work out, my parents packed us up again, and this time moved to Colorado. Finally, in 1994, my mom and dad, on their 7th entrepreneurial attempt, purchased a small business for $5,000 called Jim the Sandwich Man. They worked together to build that business. Udi focused on making food and Fern on sales. Fern would fill a box with sandwiches and then sneak into downtown high-rise buildings, going office to office, selling sandwiches, desk to desk, person to person. She broke the rules to do it. It took guts, but she wasn't scared of anything. This is how they started their food business, which today has grown into a multifaceted operation that feeds thousands every day and employs at least 500 people across different ventures. My mom was also very adventurous. She loved to travel so much that in the mid-'80s, she made a lifestyle choice for herself and her family by taking a job at Continental Airlines. She wanted those flight benefits, not just for her, but for her entire family. And we took advantage of those benefits. First were the day trips to LA to visit Disneyland, overnight trip to San Francisco to visit Sharon, and Chicago to visit Bruce. Then came longer trips to faraway places. Lots of trips to Israel, of course, but also Europe and Asia. To get our free seats on planes, we always had to show up at the airport early and wait for an empty seat. Sometimes this worked, and we got to lay on the beaches of Bali or bike across Hungary. But sometimes it didn't work. And so often my mom slept on chairs and benches in random airports. And she made us sleep there too. And sometimes her daughter-in-law too. I'm pretty sure my mom slept in more airports than anybody else. In case you're wondering, the best airport to get stuck in overnight is Frankfurt. The list of adventures my mom has been on is so long. Just for fun, here are a few places she visited: India, Vietnam, Jordan, Turkey, Egypt, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, Belize, Norway, Sweden, Czech Republic, Mexico, Honduras, China. I could go on. If you invited my mom on a trip or an adventure, then she would go. My cousins call it the Shlomit treatment. The time, by the way, Shlomit is my mom's Hebrew name. My cousins call it the Shlomit treatment. The time and energy she would give to the adventure and her co-adventurers. My mom went to Italy just because she knew our business partner, Sarah's family, would host her. Sarah's Italian sister-in-law can still tell you about all the meals they ate together. When another business partner, Peter, invited my mom to join him and Elena in Hawaii to visit with Peter's friend, Ram Das, I warned Peter that my mom would say yes to his invitation. But Peter welcomed the opportunity to host her, and so Peter and Elena took great care of my mom and formed their own special bond with her, especially Elena, who became very close with my mom the past year. We could go on with stories of my mom showing up random places and sleeping on strangers' couches. This is how my mom touched so many people in so many ways. I'm glad that I had the chance this week to kiss her one last time. To tell her how much I loved her and how much she meant to me and to her grandkids and to her friends. And I'm glad that today we can come together and celebrate who she was and the life she created. May her memory always bring us joy and warmth. We will miss you.
You guys now at the hard work of laying Fern's physical body to rest. Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet. And so we take a moment now. We actually can't conclude our service yet. We have a little bit more work to do. And the work that we have to do is to help to fill Fern's grave with earth. In my opinion, it's one of the most beautiful things that we do in Judaism. It is also one of the hardest. And especially in this moment, the way that it was originally explained to me when I was a kid feels exactly right, which is that Fern probably spent a lot of time tucking kids and grandkids into bed. A lot of time tucking, I don't know, friends and strangers' kids into bed, making sure that people felt warm and welcome and accepted and comfortable wherever they were. I heard that about her. And now that's our job, to make sure that in this space that Fern is safe, that she is at peace, that she is tucked in to this final resting space for her physical self, and we help to make that happen. And so I'm gonna invite in a little bit of an order, Fern's family, and then the general public that's here, her friends and community, to help with this moment, to help with the filling of her grave. Here are two traditions that I'll tell you, so that if you choose to participate, you know a little bit more. The first is that we always do the first shovel upside down. The first shovel full of dirt we do upside down. That's on purpose. It's really hard to shovel upside down. It won't work very well. That's by design. This is really hard. And it represents that we don't do this eagerly. We don't do this with enthusiasm. We do it with pain, and it is hard. And the second thing is that we put our shovel back into the mound of earth when we are done, rather than passing it from person to person. You get to have this experience on your own, to feel however you want. You don't have to be past anybody else's grief or expectation in this moment. And so I'm going to call Udi to begin. Now Isai and Robin. Fern's siblings. On both sides and do it at the same time. And Darcy and Justin and any grandkids that want to participate. And while they're finishing, I'm going to call any other family that's present to line up first, and then friends and community to line up behind them. You can make 2 lines on either side. 4 people can shovel at a time in theory. And you don't need to wait for the person in front of you to be finished. We're going to move through this sort of with honor, but also with not, I wouldn't say urgency, but we're going to move efficiently. You'll come and make 2 lines out.
Bye bye.
Why are we gonna put a sign here?
Wow.
My baby. You do? Yes. Wow. Okay. Well, I can see you can have one. This is what this is shy. It's okay.
And that's the two.
What happened? Where is it?
Well, you lose your.
Where is it? Where's
Took
your
it
tooth?
out of it. It's all here. And it got me chocolate. And it got me a piece of chocolate. And it got me a coin.
I know.
That's your chocolate.
And it's going in.
I can see it. So intense. They can't, they don't stop. I'm worried about it. There's three, yeah.
When all of the dots gone, then I can stand on it.
No, we have to come when it's filled.
Yeah, like when it's filled,
Thank you.
when it's filled,
Yes,
Yes, I
yes.
understand.
When it's filled, you can stand on it. Hey. Thank you.
He's a, you know, good friend, he's a doctor, you know, some 50 man. Mr. Burrow.
No.
They do what they can. They can't hear people. So that you were able to help inform they were also there for being yeah.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
In a moment, we'll conclude our service with our memorial prayer. For a moment before that, I'm going to ask that as the last people who are standing in line participate in our ritual, that the guys help us to finish filling this space so that we can conclude in just a moment. I ask you to please return to your places.
Don't lift it because then you'll reach it.
You hit so fast. You hit silence. It didn't happen in a normal way. It was not clear. It was really not clear. So very quickly, they should stop working because of the
So I have a whole bunch of years ago. One of your brothers? Tell me your name.
I'm going to ask you to return to your places and rise as you are able for our memorial prayer.
El male rachamim, shochen baneroni, amse menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina. Im kedoshim utehorim, kezohar harakia, mazhiri. Et nishmat shlomit bat tzvi v'sara, shehalcha leolama. Bal harachamim, yastireha b'seter k'nafar leolamim. Veyitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata, etanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen.
God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Shlomit Batzvi Visara close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you. May she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. And I invite those who are in mourning to join me with the words of the mourners Kaddish, our ancient words of remembrance. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach lirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'elah min kol v'yarchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace on high make peace for us and for all of Israel. And we say together, amen. Lech yishalachecha Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai imach. Go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kevod Adonai yasvecha. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. And as we conclude our service today, in just a moment, Jim is going to give you instructions how to line up. We're going to make 2 lines. And as our mourners, as the family of Fern pass through in between our lines, we say to them these words, Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. It starts with Hamakom yinachem etchem. That means may God be there for you. May God comfort you. But the word for God that we use, the name for God that we use is Hamakom, which also means the place. So may God comfort you, and may this place comfort you and be a place that you can come to be with your wife, your mom, your sister, your grandma, your friend. She is in this place, but she is also with you. Jim.
If I can have those in attendance come over this way to line up, so we can make a path so the family can pass through. It's appropriate to continue walking. You're welcome to say hello. So we can have you come down this way. They'll walk this way towards the road, towards their cars. Thank you, Rabbi. Yes. We got some right over here. If you guys want to join us on this side.
Really disruptive. 2 rows.
I just want to walk and left, go down towards you. Okay. You guys walk as well. Go towards me.
Sorry.
Hi, Rabbi. I can't hear.
So the Tahara for Shriver. Shriver Tahara.
Okay, bye.
What is it? The tallest. Oh, the tallest. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Jim showed me the tallest. The tallest. Have you working? Did you work out? Yeah, you work exactly. Yes.